So how bad really was the Detroit Lions draft this year? Not bad at all, actually. I kind of liked it, but I also kind of didn't. One thing that is certain is that it's nowhere near the dumpster fire that people made it out to be. So let's take a deeper look at the picks, and then give the entire draft a grade. Let's get right into it. With their first pick in the first round, the Detroit Lions select JAHMYR GIBBS, satellite back out of Alabama. This is obviously the pick that everyone is focused on when talking about their draft, and rightfully so. Even though the Lions did trade down from number 6, GIBBS was still a massive reach there. Sure, he was getting a lot of late round buzz, but all that hype is always sort of questionable, like when apparently Cody Mock was going to go in the first round. There's no guarantee he would have went in the first by any means. The move definitely felt like it had some panic to it. Maybe they wanted Devin Witherspoon, I don't know. Either way, they could have had Tyree Wilson, but I guess they figured he was too similar to Aiden Hutchinson. At the end of the day, what's kind of getting forgotten about that he is actually a good player, that is JAHMYR GIBBS. After all, he did run a 4.36 at the combine, and definitely proved himself to be a hell of a receiver this year at Alabama. So regardless of draft value, they did get a good player who will definitely help Jared Goff. Overall, I give this pick a D+. If I'm being honest, I originally had it pegged as an F, but the more I looked into it, and now knowing that they were planning to trade DeAndre Swift, I get it, but there were other very good players there on the board. With their second pick of the first round, the Detroit Lions take Jack Campbell, a linebacker out of Iowa. I have to admit something on this one. I like this pick to begin with. I know that admitting that is tantamount to treason in the world of analytics and draft value and all that, but I do think he has the potential to make an impact to the next level. Because, think about it. Looking back, would anyone be upset now if Fred Warner went 18th overall? It was kind of bizarre because Jack Campbell really put up some very impressive combine numbers. The ones that were compared very favorably to Luke Kuechly. Also, I definitely don't think he would have been available for them in the second round. I wouldn't be surprised part of the reason why they decided to reach for him was they inquired around about trades and got a sneaking suspicion that the Bills were going to pull the trigger. Overall, I give this pick a B+. It's not an incredible value there, but at the same time, they are getting the best player at his position in the draft. So, how bad is that pick really in that context? With their first pick of the second round, the Detroit Lions take Sam LAPORTA, tight end out of Iowa. This pick was also quite controversial because Michael Mayer was still on the board. This was one of those tell me you don't know anything about the Lions offense without telling me you don't know anything about the Lions offense kind of moments. Because, I definitely like Michael Mayer more as a prospect than LAPORTA, but LAPORTA fits what they do more. Their passing game is very reliant on yards after the catch, which is something that LAPORTA really excels at, demonstrated by his ability to hit people in the face while in full stride or changing direction. He probably won't be that productive because a lot of tight ends just aren't because they don't get fed the ball much, but you can't fault them for not trying to square peg this just to honor the sacred cow of draft value. Overall, I give this pick an A-. I'll ding the Lions maybe just a bit for not extracting some value, maybe working out a trade with the Raiders. With their second pick of the second round, the Lions take Brian Branch, defensive back out of Alabama. So it's quite the epic fall for Brian Branch, who some had projected to go top 10, and by some I mean me. I stand by him as a talent, and in particular, his skill set is really good for today's NFL, which is sort of the hybrid player where you can line him up in all sorts of places to cover different guys. He's going to be a day one starter for them. And funny enough, if they had just taken him 12th instead of GIBBS, I don't think anyone would be mad, and I would look less stupid. So I give this pick an A+. They got a really useful player really late in the draft and basically undo any damage reaching for players earlier did. With their first pick of the third round, the Lions took Hendon Hooker, quarterback out of Tennessee. I like Hooker, which sounds really weird. Whatever. I like Hendon. I think he's a good quarterback, and it's too bad what happened to him with ACL. And it would have been awesome if he discovered some sort of anti-aging serum, but he's going to have a tough time taking advantage of his best peak years in the NFL. Also for the Lions, it's interesting because Jared Goff's only 29 and Hooker's going to be 26, so not sure how that's going to exactly work. Overall, I give this pick a C+. I think Hooker definitely has a chance to be a good NFL quarterback, but I would have rather the Lions try to maximize their window here and picked up another defensive end, especially since there were so many good ones left. With their second pick of the third round, the Lions trade up to take BRODRIC Martin, a nose tackle out of Western Kentucky. This was another controversial move for the Lions because they gave a bunch of picks to make sure to get him, and he wasn't particularly high on draft boards. He's the sort of pick that I like to see out of teams in the middle rounds. The 6'5", 340-pound lineman has obviously very rare size, and as the cliche goes, you can't teach that. Interestingly, apparently he was a better pass rusher than he was run defender, according to PFF, which tells me there's some technique stuff they can definitely refine with him. It just doesn't make sense mathematically that someone his size would have guys being able to get past him that often, so the Lions are betting that they can make that make sense. Overall, I give this pick an A-. It's hard to know if a certain player will fall or not, but they didn't want to take that risk, and it makes sense for a guy who's built like him. With their next pick, the Lions take Colby Sorsdahl, an offensive lineman out of William & Mary. Sorsdahl is also a guy that was low on a lot of boards. I can see why Dan Campbell wanted him on his team. If you look at the picture, it looks like he's eating that guy's head. But he's not the only one with fans. Apparently, Brian Baldinger also really likes him, thinks he can maybe start, though some see him as a guard because of his short arms. Overall, I'd give this pick a E-. It's solid, not flashy. I guess they could have got him as an undrafted free agent, but who knows. With their last pick, the Lions take Antoine Green, wide receiver out of North Carolina. As far as 7th round picks goes, Antoine Green's a pretty good one. They bet on a guy who has speed and size. In particular, he's in the greens when it comes to the RAS score. Of course, that's not to say that he's going to become a starter, but at least betting on someone with speed at this point. And despite the fact that they've got Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown, they have some spots on the depth chart, so a guy like Green could feasibly make it up there at some point. Overall, I give this pick a B+. I like the idea of betting on someone here with speed and size, but not a lot of college production. Okay, so now, overall grade. I gotta give the Lions an A-. Usually I weight drafts really heavily based on how the teams do in the first and second rounds, so an A grade in the 4th round or later is not going to really make much of a difference, but a D in the 1st round would. However, in the case of the Detroit Lions and their crazy amount of picks, they were able to overcome that initial misstep. And regardless of the Gibbs pick, even if you just take it out completely out of the equation, they had a really good draft. They added 3 immediate starters, and Gibbs was going to get a lot of playing time right away, and they got a nose tackle with pass rushing upside. The Lions have been adopted by many because, they're a feel-good story, obviously, because considering how poorly the franchise has been run for so many years, and many had imagined their perfect draft scenarios that would help the Lions to get over the next hump. And these newfangled fans, they got it, just not exactly how they drew it up. Alright, Lions fans, if you could please like and subscribe, and also if you could pass this video around to other like-minded knee-biters, I would really appreciate it. I'm sorry, I had to make a knee-biting joke at some point in the video, right? Thanks again for watching.